7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And hello once again, Pacer Nation. Welcome to another episode and possibly the final episode of the season of Inside Pacer Nation. I'm Marcus Johnson, joined as always by the effervescent Jordan Phillips. Brought out that old word for you because I know you love it.
you make my heart feel so good.
It's your favorite word, and we will use it as much as we can.
It is. It really describes my bubbling personality so well. It really captures everything that I bring to the table.
And just like that, I want to immediately throw my microphone down and run away. No, anyway, we'll go ahead and get things started before I have to run away with golf. Golf has been doing, as we predicted at the start of the 2017-2018 athletic season, fantastic. Capping off another season with a second consecutive Peach Belt Conference Championship, and go ahead, you got a little bit of information on that if I'm not mistaken. Just an absolutely dominant performance at the championship. Go ahead and give them the numbers.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned, their second consecutive PBC Conference Championship, their 12th conference title overall, and in that conference tournament they shot 18 under par, which is actually, right here it says they shot 18 under par, and it was the lowest three-round score in tournament history. They were the only team to finish under par overall, with Columbus State finishing second, and they were perfectly at par during the tournament. So, I mean, that shows you just how impressive this golf team performed in the conference tournament.
Yeah, they shot an 850 on the day, which was just an absolutely outstanding achievement for them. And I remember we were actually at softball during the second day of the tournament, and the Peach Belt Conference SID sent a text message up to us and said, just wanted to let you guys know, you guys set a record for the lowest round score. I thought you might enjoy that. I mean, and when you look at this golf team, which is, to put it simply, absolutely stacked with not just, I mean, the entire team is fantastic, but you've got three that are above and beyond expectations. Although, then again, I'm sure the golf community really expected this from these guys. Axel Austinson, Johnson Holiday, and August Lindvall have been destroying everything they've ever come across. August Lindvall is the number 32 individual ranked golfer in the nation. Johnson Holiday, who won the individual title at the Peach Belt Conference Championship, congratulations to him, earned the number 6 ranking in the nation. And Axel Austinson is just, to put it simply, is a beast out there. He is the number 2 golfer in the nation. When you consider what this university has to work with, they're working it with 2 of the top 10 golfers in the nation, and then Axel Austinson number 2. Michael Carlisle has got to be one happy camper.
I can imagine. I mean, when you're given the opportunity to work with 3 just absolute monsters in a sport all at one time on one team, that's got to be a great day to be a coach. And I mean, when you've got 3 of the top 25 or top 50 golfers in the nation on your team at one time, that makes your job a little bit easy as a coach, I think.
And it isn't coming as much of a surprise that according to golfstat.com, which is the official ranking system for NCAA Division II golf, I'm not sure about Division I. They don't pay me enough to dig around for that, but the Pacers are ranked number 7 in the nation, and surprisingly, they actually dropped. They actually dropped from number 6 in the nation, which is very weird, but that doesn't matter because the Pacers are the number 1 ranked team in the Southeast region, which is arguably the top region for Division II golf. Some of the best teams in the country, the top 10 teams in the country, like to set their roots in the Southeast region and the South region, which will be competing indirectly to move on to the NCAA tournament. We'll get into that later, but Pacers being top ranked is an impressive achievement. I mean, just so much good things have been happening for golf that, I mean, you can only assume that it's even going to get even better this year.
Yeah, and you were mentioning Johnson Holiday, the individual champion at the tournament. Let's talk about the numbers that got him there. He ended the tournament ahead by 3 strokes and 8 under par at 208, and he finished second last year. So we've only seen him improving over his time here, and this senior year for him has really come to fruition, and we see that in his performance.
Yeah, sadly, he is a redshirt senior, so he will be gone. Too bad we can't give him another red shirt and keep him around for another year. I'm sure that he would be able to take the national championships by storm if he doesn't do that already this year. But yeah, he shot a 68 on the first day of the tournament, 66 on the second day, and then he fell back a little bit. He decided to take it nice and easy on the last day. He shot a 74. Very, very sad there. But I mean, when you finish 8 under par shooting a 208 for a combined 3-day total, that you did a great job there. Johnson Holiday, once again, congratulations. And Axel Austinson finished 3rd in that tournament. He was 3 under par par, shooting a .213. And then the other of the terrible trio, I guess we should say, or terrifying trio, not terrible. Let's go with terrifying trio. August Lindvall finished in 5th place. He was 1 under par. But here's another interesting thing. When you look at the top finishes, the top 10, you had Johnson Holiday, who finished first. Austinson was actually tied for 3rd, so he had the second best score in the tournament. Lindvall finished 5th. So, I mean, really, you only had you had your top 4 scores right there. So even though Lindvall was 5th, he was the 4th best if you want to work with the whole how the tie thing works. And then rookie George Eubank tied for 8th. So you had 4 Pacers finish in the top 10 in the conference tournament of one of the best conferences for college golf, and one of them was a rookie. I mean, that's a really bright spot for the future.
No, absolutely. George Eubank, the freshman out of Spartanburg, South Carolina. I mean, that gives you a bright spot in this on this golf team for many years to come if he chooses to stick around for all 4 years, which we certainly hope he does.
We really hope so. I know Michael Carlisle does a great job with this golf program, and I talked with him just briefly after the athletics banquet. I wanted to wish him luck as the Super Regionals are coming up, and I told him hopefully he'll bring home that number 4 trophy. You can put it up in the trophy case. He says we'll do our best. So big good luck to everybody, and congratulations. Even if the season ends early, it was still another impressive season. But the Super Regionals will be taking place May 7th through 9th in North Carolina. The Pacers, again, ranked number 1 in the Southeast region. They have won 5 region titles in their history, and it was 5 straight from 2002 to 2006 with a trio of national championships in there. Austinson and Holiday, while being some of the top golfers in the nation, are unsurprisingly the highest ranked in the region. And just a little note for everybody, you don't actually have to win the region to advance to the national championships. 7 teams will advance from the Southeast and the Southern regions to the national championships. So the Pacers don't have to win the tournament. It'd be great if they did, but they don't have to.
Now, is that saying that 7 teams will advance from each one, or 7 teams combined? Okay.
Combined. That's how I read it, and I'm pretty sure if I'm wrong, I'm sure I will get an angry phone call from our SID, Brent Hager, saying,
absolutely,
how dare you make a mistake on an official script, but it happens every now and again. Hopefully I'm right. I'm pretty sure I'm right. I'm on 99.9% I'm right.
It sounds more likely that it would be 7 combined than 14 in total, so we'll go with that.
The Pacers have a good history in the Super Regionals. Hopefully they'll bring home a 6th regional championship and that big number 4 national championship. We'll go ahead and wrap things up with golf now. We will get back to it slightly at the very end of things when we send out our final year congratulations, but we'll move on to women's tennis. The season sadly came to an end in the Peach Belt Conference quarterfinals, but this team did a fantastic job on the season considering what they had to compete against. They finished with an 11-10 record, a winning record. Sadly did not qualify for the NCAA tournament, but when they were in the Peach Belt Conference quarterfinals, kind of backtracking a little bit, they lost to the number 24 team in the nation, North Georgia. And you can't really fault them for losing to a top-ranked team, a top 25 team.
Yeah, I mean, you're facing top competition. You're gonna take a loss somewhere, so you might as well get it out of the way there and just push forward going into the Super Regionals.
And the final results of that was a 5-1 victory for North Georgia. Just give you a little bit of information on how things were going there. Kayla Calvert and Olivera Veskovec played their final matches as Pacers here, and Veskovec, it's heartbreaking that she wasn't able to pull out a win in her final match. And Kayla Calvert the same, but Veskovec was one of the best to ever step out onto the court for women's tennis and the Pacers. She was just an absolute dominant force out there, a great team leader. Kayla Calvert the same way. She was a 2-sport athlete at one point. She decided to slow things up and just take part in tennis, but she was also another fantastic Pacer, fantastic person, great leader out there on the court, and we hate to see them go, but there is tons of talent on that team, tons of young talent that can step up and take their place and really make a run at making it back to the NCAA tournament for them. 2 of those are Neves and Bompieri, who earned the lone victory in the matchup against North Georgia. They won their number 3 match in the doubles category. So congratulations to them. At least they managed to make light of something that was not so bright.
Yeah, Elena Bompieri, a freshman, and Alice Neves, as you mentioned, the sophomore. I mean, this team does have talent going forward, so while it is going to hurt losing Calvert and Veskovec, as well as, some of the other seniors on the team, that is, there is a lot of hope going forward for this team. They've got a lot of young talent there, and Coach Steve Dahm always seems to find a way to make things work with his tennis teams. So it's definitely not a time to fret for Pacer fans.
Yeah, I don't think there really is any time to fret when it comes to tennis. Again, Steve Dahm does a great job. And speaking of doing a great job, men's tennis had a fantastic season this year. They finished the year off at 16-6 before moving on into the NCAA tournament. In the Peach Belt tournament, they fell to Georgia College by a score of 5-3, but it was a very close matchup, obviously a 5-3 finish, very close. They had victories at the number 3 doubles action and number 5 and number 6 singles action, but they did well enough in the season to earn a national ranking and also play in the NCAA tournament for the third straight year. They were ranked number 4 and took on number 5 Wingate, where unfortunately their season did come to an end, a loss of 5-0. But you want to stop and you want to look back at things. This is a team that was going in throughout most of the season without their number 1 and their number 2 ranked players, and they were still A, nationally ranked, and B, a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you have to look at with this team. I mean, as you mentioned, 1 and 2, your top 2 players, and I mean, you're losing that for an extended period of time that requires other players to step up who aren't necessarily aren't ready to take that step, but also are younger players who haven't fully matured into their roles on the team yet, and to have to take that step forward it puts a lot of pressure on your team, and to see the way they succeeded despite that pressure it's encouraging for Pacer fans for sure.
And a little something else that's very encouraging, even though they lost to Georgia College, it was close action. Doubles action was unbelievably close. The final scores for all 3 of the doubles matches were an 8-5 loss, a 9-8 loss, and a 9-7 loss. You get a couple of good shots that go your way, those scores change really fast, and even more of a bright spot is Alvaro Garcia Gil, who is only a sophomore, being named the Athlete of the Month for April.
Yeah, that's definitely encouraging. Alvaro Garcia Gil he was one of those players that had to step up, despite not necessarily being completely prepared to take that role, but he stepped up and he thrived in it. He absolutely smashed all expectations for him this season, and that was definitely an awesome thing to see.
Yeah, and he just had an absolutely monstrous April, so a good way to close out the season. He went a combined 13-2 in his matches, 7-1 in singles, 6-1 in doubles. So he was tearing up the court. He's only a sophomore. He'll be back for 2 more years at the best. Well, hopefully he will be. I assume he will be. I think Coach Dahm will keep him around. But again, and next year their number 1 and their number 2 guys will be coming back. This is a team that even though we're in, again, a very tough region of play, a tough conference of play for men's tennis, we're looking at a team that could possibly break the top 10 and finish off in the top 10 for the end of the year.
Absolutely. This is a fun team to watch, and they're only going to get better going on into next season once they're fully healthy.
And so we will wrap things up with men's tennis now. Great future ahead, and we're not just saying that just to say that. We actually think they are going to do fantastic next year. They did fantastic this year. Why not stop? Why stop there? Move on to softball now. A season that didn't go as well as we had hoped, but they finished the year very strong. Their overall record was 15-34 in overall play and 5-14 in conference play. But a bright spot, they've managed their final 8 games. They split their final 8 games 4-4. And it was an absolutely emotional farewell on senior day.
Yeah.
You sadly weren't able to be there, but it was a split with UNC Pembroke, and game 1 was probably one of the best games I've ever seen this Pacer squad play. They won it 6-3, and the senior for the day, Chandler Terrapin, who not only was the starting pitcher, also smashed 2 home runs for 3 RBIs in that game.
Yeah, she was definitely a big part of the game, and she was rewarded for her efforts. She got engaged after the game.
She
that
did
was
get
awesome.
engaged. I remember I'm sitting there up in the press box watching them, looking for the sign to start playing the special music, and then just as soon as I play that special music, she turns around and just all the emotions just were let forth. It was a wonderful moment to see for her. She deserved it, and she did say yes. Just letting everybody know she said yes. Through the tears and the hiccuping, she said yes.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, it was already an emotional senior day. You had Sydney Kate Murphy, Chandler Terrapin, Lindy Dorgan, and Brielle Jungblood all playing in their final game for the Pacers, and it was, those are players that have been here for a while. They've all spent a majority of their careers here at USC Aiken, and to see those players leave, it was an emotional moment for really everybody. But, this team has been through its share of adversity, and they've embraced it, and they've come out the other side of it, and then it was awesome to see them win or finish the season on a high note.
Yeah, and as you said, those 4 seniors had played their last game. There were some others that played their last game as well. Some were not seniors, but they had better opportunities for education. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yes, academics,
education. They had better opportunities elsewhere. And while we don't want to see them go, we know that schoolwork comes first, your career comes first, and we wish all you student athletes that do not stick around for your senior year the best of luck wherever you go. And you have our full support. And please do not hesitate to come back and visit us.
Oh, absolutely. And let's talk about some of the numbers, career numbers for those seniors. So you look at, Chandler Terrapin. Terrapin and Sydney Kate Murphy finished tied for third in career home runs for USC Aiken. They each had 17 in their careers. And this season, Chandler Terrapin finished with a .307 batting average, 7 home runs, 26 RBIs, a .543 slugging percentage. That's a good number there, and a .405 on-base percentage, whereas Sydney Kate Murphy finished with a .282 batting average, 6 home runs, 19 RBIs, a .513 slugging percentage, and a .315 OBP.
And also going back to Chandler Terrapin, her numbers in the last week of play were good enough to earn her Peach Belt Conference Athlete of the Week honors, as well as USC Aiken Athlete of the Week honors. And she had a fantastic week to close out her season, getting engaged, earning Athlete of the Week honors, tying for third in home runs. I mean, really, if you're not going to go out a champion, that's probably your best way you can go out, in my opinion. And moving on to the other 2 seniors, Brielle Jungblut. She managed to get to number 10 in her career in stolen bases, which, I'm actually very surprised that she wasn't number 1 because of her speed. She could have easily taken just the number 1 spot, but number 10 in career stolen bases with 34. Congratulations to her. She's a .317 career hitter at USC Aiken. Whenever you finish with a over 300 batting average, you've done a fantastic job. This season, she finished with a .296 batting average, 12 stolen bases, 8 RBIs, a .328 slugging percentage. She's a real slugger out there, and a .333 on-base percentage. Moving on to Lindy Dorgan. Lindy Dorgan wasn't much of a stat player, but she was more of a utility player, I guess you could call it. She was very valuable in the field at second base, making the transition from pitcher to second base back to pitcher. She did a fantastic job. She pitched when she needed to. She made outstanding defensive plays when she needed to, and she had a few clutch hits when she needed to, especially in that 1-0 victory a little ways back, where she got a nice double off the wall that drove in the winning run.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's pretty much how Lindy Dorgan's been her entire career. She's been that real grit player. She doesn't necessarily always make the fantastic play, but she makes the plays that count, and that's always been the way she has been here at USC Aiken.
We are going to miss that quartet of seniors. They have been phenomenal athletes, phenomenal people for this university, and we hate to see them go, but we know it has to. We know it has to happen. It can only last for so long. But those that are coming back, you're going to have a very strong core to work around. You've got Courtney Strauss, Hannah Price, Caroline Cockerell, and Macy Hutto. I think those are probably going to be your 4 athletes that you're really going to want to work around. They all had fantastic seasons. Hannah Price and Courtney Strauss especially, if you look at their stats. Hannah Price was above and beyond the top athlete on that softball team. A great pitcher and a great hitter. 394 batting average, 2 home runs, 24 RBIs, 500 slugging, and 463 on-base percentage. Meanwhile, sophomore Courtney Strauss, who, as we've highlighted her plenty of times, but we're going to give her one final highlight in the final episode here. A .317 batting average, 2 home runs, 19 RBIs, 434 slugging, and a .350 OBP. These are your 2 that you're going to want to work around, you want to build around them, and you've already got Caroline Cockerell and Macy Hutto that can really fill in the gaps. They're all phenomenal players for this squad. And if you get the rest of the pieces in there, I think you're going to have a decent team next year.
Yeah, and we saw this season, as you mentioned, with Courtney Strauss. We've seen, just because someone doesn't necessarily make a huge impact their freshman year doesn't mean that their sophomore season cannot be, a real eye-opener for them. Not a lot of people expected this kind of production from Courtney Strauss, but sure enough, here we are, her sophomore season, and she just absolutely killed it this year. So that's definitely encouraging, not only for her, but for the rest of her teammates who are, a little bit younger, underclassmen type players. You look at them and you say, okay, maybe just because this freshman year or their sophomore year wasn't a, breakout year, it doesn't mean it can't happen, coming up here shortly. And then with a player like Caroline Cockerell, as you mentioned, she was just she was a great pitcher this year for the Pacers. She didn't have fantastic numbers, but a lot of that comes from she would get brought in relief efforts in some really tough situations, loaded base situations or already down by a few run situations. But she always managed to find ways to work around it. And even if she did get knocked around a little bit in some games, she still managed to finish the season with only a 4.61 ERA, which is not great by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also her freshman year. She can always improve on that number going forward, and I would expect her to next season. She has a lot of potential. I like Caroline Cockrell as a pitcher.
And also, when you take in consideration some of the teams they play, that's not a terrible ERA when you're going up against a team like North Georgia, who's the number 2 team. They've just been upgraded to number 1. Not surprising at all.
Not at all.
They've won a national championship very recently, 2015, if I'm not mistaken. And they're looking like they might make another run at one this year. And again, the Peach Belt Conference sends teams to the College World Series constantly in softball. And the Pacers are just in the middle of that. They got a lot of tough competition to play against, but they're going to do a good job, I think, next year and working around that.
Yeah, they've got a lot of gaps to fill in recruiting, which Coach Snyder's going to have a lot of fun with, I'm sure, going out and looking for fresh talent. But I think if he gets a solid recruiting class to add to this already fairly impressive lineup, then I think things can definitely turn around for the Pacers next season.
Yep, softball, we're really hoping, we're really pulling for them to do well next year, and I think they're going to do okay. I think they're going to really improve on that record that they had. They'll probably be hovering around 500 next year if they get the right crop of students in there and qualify for the Peach Belt Conference tournament again. And now we move on to the other bat and ball sport, baseball, which is not actually over yet. We still have 2 more regular season games. Those will be happening this weekend against Shawan and Emmanuel.
That's a Catawba and Emmanuel.
Catawba, thank you.
I make the mistake all the time.
One of the C's.
Yeah, I make the mistake all the time.
And I have the schedule right in front of me, and I still called them Shawan. Anyway, Catawba and Emmanuel. Those are they're doing okay on the season, though. I mean, doing a fantastic job. A 31-17 overall record, 22-8 in the conference. Conference play is actually wrapped up before we move on to the tournament. So we'd like to just wrap that up with Pacers finished number 2 in the conference. I'm going to be honest with you. I did not see that coming. I thought that we lost too many good weapons last year to be this effective in conference play, and yet they somehow managed to pull out a number 2 ranking at the end of the season. That's a fantastic job. I mean, you got to applaud that. It was just a great job out there from all the athletes to do that. A couple of the athletes that you really want to look at are Dalton Weeks, who decided to really become a monster this year. 358 batting average at this point in time. Leads the team in almost every offensive category batting average. He has 69 hits. That's top of the team, actually tied with Jose Bonilla in the hits category. He has 14 home runs, 57 RBIs. He's slugging .663, and he has an on-base percentage of .428. All of those numbers are top.
Yeah, and I think this Dalton Weeks is the one that we were told so much about last year when he arrived at USC, and we were told, he's got a big bat, he's a really, really solid hitter. And while he did have a solid campaign last year, it was really his defense that made him stand out among the lineup last season. But this year, he's definitely shown that potential that Coach Thomas had told us so much about all offseason.
And the interesting thing about that, he's a third baseman, and Pacers have had trouble at third base. It's a tough position to playing that hot corner. And at the start of the year, he really did struggle. Looking at how he played third base, he made a few errors. But the second half of the year, I don't know what happened, but something just clicked, and he became a Gold Glove third baseman. He made some absolutely phenomenal plays. They may not have looked phenomenal, but he would make these backhanded stops that would save a double going down into the left field corner and would possibly score runs. He made plenty of those throughout the season. He became such a valuable player at third base, and then such a valuable bat. I mean, they haven't announced the team MVP for the year yet, but I'd be hard-pressed to think that it's not going to be Dalton Weeks. Just every aspect of the game, he's just thrived in this year. He's just, I can't stop praising him because he's just played that well.
Yeah, he's definitely coming to his own as a Pacer, and it's good to see that level of play coming from him.
Yeah, a couple of other players that could be in the runnings for it. Jose Bonilla, he's gotten his batting average. He started out the year pretty slow at the bat, but he has really worked his way back up. A .335 batting average on the year. He has 5 home runs. 5 home runs. 500% better than last year.
I was about to say, it definitely improved on last year.
Yep, he also has 17 RBIs. He's slugging .476, and he has an on-base percentage of .411. He also has 10 stolen bases on the year, tied with Dalton Weeks, actually, for second in the stolen base category. The leader this year is Joey Smithers. He has 14 stolen bases on the year. He's also been another one that you've kind of watched. He started out the year absolutely on fire. He cooled off. He entered the realm of humanity, if you want to call it that.
That's a good way to put it.
He was playing like a superhuman at the start of the year, but he's cooled off. He's batting .285 this year, but still great numbers all around. 5 home runs for him, 31 RBIs, .410 slugging, and .341 on base percentage. And again, he is 14 for 16 in stolen bases, doing a great job on the base path, getting those stolen bases. And honestly, the fact that he's beaten Jose Bonilla in terms of stolen bases, I wonder if you're going to see Jose try to make 4 stolen bases in these next 2 games, try to get a pair each game.
You might. He's definitely the one that we expected to lead the team in that category, but Joey Smithers said, "Oh no, don't think too fast."
Yeah, but the Pacers starting lineup's been doing a fantastic job. Niall Goings really getting clutch. Brian Pereira, super clutch. This guy will make the big hits that you need against the big opponents. Just an example, a grand slam to win the game, basically. But I mean, and you look at this lineup, they're doing well. They've got 2 more games to play, then they move on to the conference tournament. Now let's talk about the conference tournament for just a moment. Georgia College is your top team in the conference, and they're probably one of the top teams in the region as well. Everybody's looking at them to win the conference, but I don't think they're looking at the Pacers to win the conference, and I understand that. I mean, Georgia College is very good. Columbus State is another good team, but I feel like this is a Pacers squad that could make a run for the conference championship. I'm going to be with the skeptics out there. That's the word I'm looking for. Every now and again, I get stumped on a word, but I'm going to be with the skeptics out there. Winning the conference tournament is going to be a very tall order, I think, especially when you look at the teams that they're going to have to play. But I don't think it's a tall order to think that they'll play for the conference championship and at least be the runner-up. And that's what I think they need to look at. They need to try to at least get to that championship game. Because if they can get to that championship game, I think they will earn a spot in the NCAA tournament, which is really the ultimate goal, is to get to that tournament, get to the World Series, get to the national championship.
Yeah, I think this team has the talent level to make that happen. They're going to have some things go the right way, and they're going to have to play, like men possessed. But it's definitely something that can happen. It's not outside the realm of possibility to make it to that championship game in order to get to the next level at the regionals.
And one of the keys that you're really going to have to look at is you're going to have to look at the pitching. And the pitching has done a pretty good job, actually, this year. Oh, no, my stat sheet just reloaded. Give me a second here. I'll pull up the stat sheet in a minute. But pitching has been a very big factor in their wins this year. And when you look at their starting rotation from last year, you had some top-notch pitchers in Connor Riley and Jose Bonilla, both of which Jose Bonilla was an All-American, but both of them could have easily been All-Americans. Both of them ended up being drafted in the MLB draft.
I think you mean Joey Benitez, not Jose Bonilla.
How many times did I do that last year in the broadcast?
It's the JB, man.
It's the JB. The JBs of the world. I apologize.
It happens, man.
But yeah, you look at these guys. Pitching, we were concerned, but I think that, Zach Rayfuse has done a good job out there coming out and taking over the number 1 pitching role. His numbers on the year are a 3.77 ERA, a 4-3 record in his 13 starts. He's done a good job there. His strikeout totals are pretty good as well, if you want to look at those. 73 strikeouts on the season, one of the top strikeout pitchers. But you want to look at the guy who I think is going to be a really bright spot for the future is Mitch Spence. Let's go ahead and talk about him for a minute.
Yeah, Mitch Spence last year, he kind of filled that closer role, and he kind of started in that relief role this season as well. And he struggled a bit there to start off, but then they moved him to a starting pitcher, which a lot of people, myself included, were kind of skeptical about, didn't really know what to think about that. I was thinking, man, you go from being a one-inning guy to you're looking at starting 5 innings usually at minimum. That's a lot. Like, that's a big jump, and I didn't know how he was going to do. And at first, he did struggle in that role. I believe he had 2 starts where he started out, and he did have trouble. But then I believe in that 3rd start he made was that 9 inning complete game that he threw, and he finished the season with a 3.23 ERA, that's solid. That's awesome.
He has been a shocker, in all honesty. I did, like you, I thought he was a 1-inning closer, and a dominant 1-inning closer at that. I'm not trying to say just because you can only go 1 inning doesn't mean you're any good, but he has absolutely thrived. He's thrown 2 complete games on the year, and every time he's thrown, I've almost said, I don't think he can top his last one. And then what does he do? He goes out and he throws a shutout. A 1-hit shutout.
Yeah, against Lander there at the end of the season, that 1-hit shutout. I mean, he threw 2 complete games this season. That's not something that I expected from him, but it's certainly something that we were pleasantly surprised by going forward.
Pleasantly surprised is an understatement, honestly. Again, a 3.23 ERA in 11 starts, 13 appearances, 2 complete games. With a shutout in there, 78 innings pitched, 95 strikeouts on the year to 25 walks. I mean, just great strikeout to walk ratio, and opponents are only batting .204 on him.
Yeah, and he's only a sophomore. That's the thing that we've neglected to mention yet. He's only a sophomore. He's only going to get better.
So you've got him and you've got Rayfuse. Those are going to be your number 1 and number 2 starters. And honestly, I don't know which order they're going to be in. Both of them are very good starting pitchers to have on your squad. So you could almost mix and match them if you really wanted to. But you're going to have both of them for next year. I think you're going to have a good, solid pitching staff. You're going to lose a few more weapons, as always, but somehow the Pacers baseball squad always manages to recruit some good hitters, so they'll be good for next year. But again, why are we even looking at next year? We still got this year to finish out. 2 more games to go, Peach Belt Conference Tournament, and maybe, just maybe, NCAA regional action.
Yeah, we've got to finish the season strong if we want to make that regional tournament as the baseball team, but I think there's a good shot at it. I think, as we've talked about, this team has the talent to make it happen, and it's not something that we necessarily expected, but they've been a pleasant surprise this year.
Yeah, the keys to succeeding in the tournament are going to be as follows. Pitching got to step forward. They got to really step up, and they got to work on short days rest to get through the tournament. I think they can do that, and of course, hitting has to continue to be clutch. Dalton Weeks has to continue to be clutch. You get those 3 factors in there, they're going to make their way to the tournament finals.
Absolutely.
And possibly the NCAA regionals. But that about wraps things up with these sports. And before we close things out for this episode, we'd like to take a minute to thank all of our senior athletes and athletes that are leaving. And move on to the. We'll get to that at the very end there. But we'd like to congratulate the team MVPs for the year, and we're gonna go ahead and list them off. For cross country, Bethany Fordham earned the MVP honors. For women's soccer, Karen Cadwallader earned the MVP honors. There is no shocker there.
Not at all.
Either one of those. Bethany Fordham, one of the top runners in USC Aiken. Karen Cadwallader did a fantastic job in goal for the women's soccer team against some really tough opponents. Men's soccer, here's a real shocker. Andre Simon earned the top honors. Well, when you end up becoming the top assist leader in USC Aiken history, it's not too much of a surprise.
Not at all.
And again, another real shocker here was for volleyball. Who do you think earned the MVP honors for volleyball?
Would it possibly be the All-American Rebecca Martinez?
You would be correct in assuming that it was Rebecca Martinez. She again had a phenomenal season. Finished actually number 2 in season digs in a season in USC Aiken history, just behind Danielle Mercer, who she was the understudy of in her freshman year. Yep. And I feel like that. I'm sorry, Danielle, but I feel like that record of yours is going to be broken within the next couple of years from Martinez. Moving on, we'll look at women's basketball. Kyrie Chandler earned the MVP honors for the women's basketball team. Another no surprise there. Men's basketball, Robert Hill earned the MVP honors, and I think a lot had to do with his grit.
Oh yeah, he was an awesome player on the men's team this year, but he was one of those players that nobody really knew what to expect from him. He had a solid freshman campaign. Nobody really knew how he was going to step into that starting center role that he was going to be thrust into, and man, did he thrive in it.
Yep. Also. go ahead and give you women's tennis and onward from there. Let you get a few words in.
Yeah, so women's tennis, of course, Olivera Veskovac, the senior that we talked so much about, she picked up the honors there. And men's tennis was another player that we talked about at length with Alvaro Garcia Gil. No surprises there whatsoever. Softball, again, a shocker. Hannah Price. Who else was it going to be? Your top hitter and your top pitcher all in one person. That's Hannah Price, and she's easily took the MVP award there. And golf, we actually had co-MVPs, of course, Johnson Holiday